Hey guys, what's going on? McBull2 here. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about Colonel Starck. There have been some questions about his viability, so we'll go ahead and break that all down. We'll talk about his kit, talk about where you can use him, and if he's good outside of your Empire or Imperial Trooper teams. So we will go ahead and talk about all of that, but first, you guys are probably wondering, who is Colonel Starck? That's been the question I've been seeing the most about him lately. And Colonel Starck was the driver of one of the AT-ATs during the Battle of Hoth. He was in Blizzard 4, and if you don't know which AT-AT that is, you're probably going to recognize it from this iconic scene.
Play of the game.
So, yeah, he's not exactly someone you'll see on camera, but he was in the AT-AT that blew up with a grenade. So that is where he is in the Star Wars universe. Now, in terms of what he looks like, there's this image you can find on Google Images. This is a picture of Colonel Starck, and every time I look at it, I can't help but feel that it looks like Nicolas Cage. I mean, am I crazy here? This looks like Nicolas Cage. If you don't believe me, look at this. Boom. Look at that. You can't even tell the difference. It's Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is in the Star Wars universe. I'm not making this up, guys. Hashtag 7 degrees of Nicolas Cage. I don't know. But yeah, Nicolas Cage in the Star Wars universe. You guys are welcome. So now we're past that. His kit is definitely more of a support role than anything. His basic attack gives out defense down, and it deals bonus damage if the target already has debuffs on it. His first special will give all Empire allies crit chance and crit damage up for 3 turns, and additionally, he gains turn meter for each Empire ally and each Rebel enemy that he is around. So a lot of anti-Rebel synergies here already. He's going to make a good anti-Rebel character. And then his second special is called Blizzard 4 Barrage. He basically calls in a barrage from Blizzard 4, his AT-AT, that obviously was still alive before it got blown up. But this is going to deal damage to the opposing team. It's going to stagger them, but also you're going to notice it has an 8-turn cooldown. But this is helped because if he is surrounded by Imperial Trooper allies, each Imperial Trooper ally increases the damage of his attack by 10% and reduces the cooldown by 1. So if you're in a team of 5 Imperial Troopers, your damage from this is going to be increased by 50%, and it's also going to turn into a 3-turn cooldown instead of an 8-turn cooldown. So with that, he's really going to have a lot of Imperial Trooper synergy here. And then finally, you have his unique, where he covers health and protection. There is a Zeta upgrade here. The Zeta upgrade includes the protection regeneration, but additionally, at the end of each of his turns, he removes turn meter from the opposing team. So with that Zeta, you're going to get the protection regeneration, and you're going to get the turn meter removal from the opposing team. So it's a pretty hefty Zeta upgrade. We'll talk into more detail about if this is really worth it for him. So with this kit, you're going to notice he has a lot of anti-Rebel synergy, and this is important because he really seems to be built for your dark side territory battles. We can't really go into too much depth here about territory battles because this one is horribly imbalanced and we're just not able to see just how good your characters need to be here. But from what I've seen so far while testing him in dark side territory battles with my Imperial Trooper teams, he looks to be pretty good. He's doing a lot of damage. He's really helping buff out their damage overall. And with Snow Trooper, you can get that crit chance and crit damage on Snow Trooper and just do endless waves of AoE with your Snow Trooper, and that's really going to do a lot of damage, and it's going to be great for him. So he does have viability in an Imperial Trooper team, obviously, and he has some pretty good viability in an Empire team as well. But if you take him outside of that Empire team, his viability basically drops off. The only thing that he has then is his unique and the double damage on his basic attack, but his 2 main strengths are his special abilities, and outside of Empire they have absolutely no use. So with that, you're not really going to be using him outside of an Empire team. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about how you want to mod your Colonel Starck and why. With Colonel Starck, I like to go for a mixture of speed and potency on his mod sets. The speed is going to be useful because of the way he operates. You want him going fast, you want him going often, because you want to be making sure you can spam his specials, especially that Blizzard 4 Barrage. That stagger is going to be a very nice debuff to have on the opposing team. So with that, you want to make sure that you can get the potency on him to make sure that he can get that stagger stick on the opposing team. And of course, he has some pretty high speed already. At having a gear 10, he already has 151 speed. He's already a pretty fast character, so he's going to get a lot of benefit from having a speed mod set on him as well. You can see here I've got 274 on him, and these are arena speed mods on him too, so keep that in mind. These are some pretty top tier mods I have. So that is why you want to make sure you can have him go faster. You can spam his cooldowns and making sure that he supports his team, and also making sure that you can impede the enemy team with that turn meter removal. So in terms of viability with the raid, you will be using him with an Imperial Trooper team, and this footage here is coming courtesy of Kaketia. Again, links to all the YouTube channels are down below in the video description. And with this, you are able to get that crit chance and crit damage up to your entire team. And Kaketia actually did a whole new personal record just by throwing Colonel Starck in his team. He does have gear 12 troopers all around, so a lot of money spent on his characters. But with this team, he almost solos phase 4. He does a little over 10.5 million damage with Colonel Starck and your Imperial Trooper team. So if you enjoy running your Imperial Troopers in the tank raid, then try these in phase 4. I have another video where I've done a tutorial on Imperial Troopers in phase 4. But with Colonel Starck now, that offensive boost with his buffs means that your Imperial Troopers can constantly be critting and doing a lot of damage. So with this team, you're going to see a new bump in damage there. So Colonel Starck is a very good PvE and raid character here, especially just because of what he can do for your Imperial Troopers in the raid. Now, in terms of other teams that I like to use with Colonel Starck, my new favorite team is a Director Krennic Zeta lead with Colonel Starck, General Veers, Death Trooper, and Snow Trooper. And what this team does is, as you'll see here on the screen, with the buffs from Colonel Starck, you're getting 25% crit chance plus the 25% crit chance from the Director Krennic lead. And with that, you're getting 50% to all of your Empire allies. But under the Zeta Krennic lead, anytime they score a critical hit, they recover 10% protection. And what this means is that your Empire characters are going to be landing critical hits all day. Your Snow Trooper can constantly do his AoE because the AoE loses a cooldown every time that it scores a critical hit. So you can basically get the crit chance up buff on your Snow Trooper with the crit damage, have him just constantly doing his AoE, and with the Veers unique as well, that means bonus turn meter every time that an enemy is defeated. So your Imperial Troopers are going to be going a lot, plus they'll also get offense up. So altogether, it is a very deadly team to use. It absolutely tore through Galactic War. I completed my Galactic War in 7 minutes on full auto with this team, and it was just an absolute blast to use. So this is definitely a team that I have enjoyed using. In terms of arena, it's not very good because, of course, General Kenobi and Zeta Barris, they just kind of tear up any crit-based teams. But with this team, it's a very good PvE team, and I'd love to be able to use it in territory battles. But unfortunately, with the imbalance and the bug fixes and everything else, really didn't have a good opportunity to try it. But it's definitely something I'm going to be keeping my eye on. So if you're looking for an interesting team that's not just Imperial Troopers, Director Krennic Zeta lead with the Colonel Starck in there is going to be another good option. So with that, that's some pretty good PvE teams. You can also use a Palpatine lead because of his synergies with Empire allies dealing out debuffs, but at that point you're starting to get wishy-washy on how good it is. Thrawn is another good Empire lead. It's really going to be helpful with your Colonel Starck because Colonel Starck already has a pretty average pool of health and protection. So with that Thrawn lead, you're going to be able to buff up that, plus you get some bonus offense. But again, the key to Colonel Starck lies in his cooldowns. So anything like that, a Tarkin lead could also be useful. That plus 30 speed on Empire allies is another good lead that you can put Colonel Starck in. So there are some pretty good other Empire leads you can use him under. But really, I think the best synergies are going to be your Director Krennic and your General Veers because of their synergies there with the crit chance and the Imperial Trooper synergies with General Veers and his leadership and his unique. So we know he's pretty good for PvE content. How does he handle in PvP? And unfortunately, he's not a very good PvP character. He relies on giving out those crit chance and crit damage buffs, and the meta the way it is, there's a lot of emphasis on anti-crit. You have General Kenobi and Zeta Barris, both who live off of critical hits, so that's not going to be doing very well. You can try him in some different teams, and full Imperial Trooper team, it can do pretty decent, but we tried this Zeta Krennic lead with the Imperial Troopers in there, and they got completely destroyed on offense. So at the end of the day, he will not have much impact for arena just because the stagger is nice, but the buffs that he gives just is not something that's really going to help you. It's really going to feed into the opposing team. Again, this cleanses out. Plus, Barris on her own with all those critical hits, she's going to be moving a lot, and that means there's going to be a lot more cleanses for her. So there's just nothing here for Colonel Starck in the arena meta. And additionally, his basic attack relies on debuffs to actually do some pretty decent damage. If you don't have any debuffs out on the target when you use Colonel Starck's basic attack, it really does not do a lot of damage. You're talking 4,000 to 5,000 at most. So having that double damage with a debuffed enemy is nice, but unless there's debuffs, you're just not going to be able to put out enough damage with Colonel Starck to really make a difference there. So in terms of PvP, I would not recommend using him in the meta or in really the arena unless you're outside the top 100 or so, and you can really make do with a really good Imperial Trooper team. At the end of the day, he's just not going to be a worthy addition for your Imperial Trooper team as it is, unless it's just something that you want to mess around with and have some fun. So I would recommend you use him mostly for PvE content and avoid using him for PvP. Now, one final thing before we wrap it up and get out of here, I mentioned earlier I was going to talk about the Zeta for him and if it's worth it. And in my opinion, it's a pretty good Zeta. It's not high up there on your priority list of things you actually should get, but if you are intent on really filling out your Imperial Trooper team and you really want to get that extra oomph to it, getting this Zeta on Colonel Starck is a decent and at least somewhat worthwhile investment. It's not going to become a game changer. It is going to help give you that edge for your Imperial Trooper team in those dark side territory battles, since you're going to be fighting all of those rebel enemies. So with that, if you can get a full Imperial Trooper team and throw in Colonel Starck and fight those rebel waves, you are going to get a lot of benefit out of this Zeta. But outside of that, it's hard to say if it's going to be worth it. Galactic War is now so easy, you can just tear through it on auto like I did in 7 minutes. And in terms of arena, it's kind of, if you don't have a lot of rebel enemies in there, you have Commander Luke and usually R2 and Han, but half the time Commander Luke is going to resist the turret removal from Colonel Starck, and anytime Commander Luke resists a debuff or detrimental effect, he gains protection in the process. So with this unique on Colonel Starck, if Luke has that where he doesn't have the call to action buff, he's going to constantly be resisting that turn meter reduction, which means bonus protection for him. So it's not exactly a really beneficial Zeta for arena. But again, if you are absolutely focused on getting something to help push your Imperial Troopers along, this is definitely a Zeta to look at for PvE content. But outside of that, I would not recommend it. So at the end of the day, it's really up to you. If this is something you really want to focus on to get better in dark side territory battles, which again, I'd recommend you hold off until we get a much cleaner version and know just what we're fighting up against. I recommend on holding off on the Zeta until we know then, but it is still a pretty beneficial dark side Zeta to have for territory battles. So I would say right now, hold off on it, and let's see what dark side territory battles look like before we can really give a verdict on yes or no on whether you should invest in this Zeta. So that is pretty much it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask down below in the comments section. I'll do what I can to answer them. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you guys have learned about Colonel Starck and whether or not he's a good character and something you should go for. And if you are looking to get him started up, you will be able to find him in guild shipments. He shows up approximately 25% of the time. It's iffy, it's RNG dependent, so you know he may show up like 2 or 3 times in a row. You may not see him for a day like I have. So at the end of the day, if you're really looking to get him started up, look for him in the guild store, or if you have a lot of money that you can spend, buy his packs out of the store. It's $12.99 crystals for a chance of 5 to 330 shards for him. So those are 2 ways you can obtain him right now. But anyways, guys, again, thanks again for watching. Let me know what you guys think of this video, and like I said before, feel free to ask questions down below. Hope you all have enjoyed this video. I will talk to you guys later.